Hey everybody, it's Nick here, and I'm going to take a walk down memory lane because it was my birthday yesterday. I got heaps of people wishing me happy birthday, which is awesome. I appreciate all the messages and the calls and everything I got. It was awesome. And I used it as a day to reflect, and I like to reflect on most days, but birthdays are one of those days that you get a chance to really reflect, as well as eat cake. Anyway, I wanted to create this video for you because I want to encourage you, right? I want to encourage you that you can go for whatever it is you want to go for in life and that you don't have to do it alone. And I want to tell my story because it's proof of that, and I'm nothing special. So this story that I'm going to tell you about me is the same story that lots of people have, just the details are different, but the script is pretty much the same. Now, I'll get deep and heavy with you for a second because research looking at people who are in palliative care in hospices waiting to die asks them what their greatest regrets were. And the top regret was really that they didn't live a life of their own. They lived a life according to somebody else. Right now, we don't have to get to that point in life to begin to make a different decision and to go for the things that we want to go for. And the only thing really stopping you is the story that's going on inside of your head. And really, that's my story, is the story of me overcoming my story over and over again to be able to do what I want to do despite having that story. You've got to break free from your own story. You've got to break free from your own stereotype. All right, so anyway, let me do a real quick walk down memory lane so you can see how I got to where I am today. If I share my screen here, you can see this is a street called Henry Street. And you can look here, it's pretty dry and sparse, and you'd be right, it's in the middle of Australia, well, not quite the middle of Australia, but it's in the country Australia, as you'll see. And this house is the house that I can remember being in. It's my first memory. Now, I wasn't born in this town, but this town is called Deniliquin. It's in kind of at the outback of Australia. And this is the house that I grew up in. In fact, I had a major stack on my bicycle here and got a huge graze up my thigh. I remember that. And anyway, so if we come out of here, you'll see where this is, right? So if we zoom out, okay, so there's the house. Yep, and here's the school, right? Now I went to this school, the first school I went to, the first of many, as you'll hear. I remember when I went to kindergarten, the first year of school, after a week or two, I didn't really like being told what to do. I didn't like the routine. I didn't like having to do the same thing over and over again. And so I decided I had enough, and I just literally walked out of the class with my bag, and I walked out here, down this street here, walked all the way down here, got to about here and got pretty nervous, and so then I just ran all the way home, came around here and ran in there. It was a huge journey for a 5-year-old kid to do, and freaked my mother out because she'd been got a call from the school about me vanishing. That one character trait of me, bucking the routine and the authority. When someone's got that characteristic, they can go off the rails. You can get into trouble if you break the rules, but you can also have breakthroughs when you break through what's expected of you sometimes, right? So anyway, so let's keep going out here. You can see that, this is it, and then we start getting in, you're going to see really the scope, because that's Deniliquin. That's it. Just this little town here, surrounded by farmland. Let's go and see how much farmland that is. A lot of farmland, a lot more farmland, and a lot more, and a lot more, and a lot more, right? I was really stuck out there, and a lot more still. And you can see up the top here, it really starts getting into more desert land there. And there we go. Finally, you can see the coast. And now we are, of course, based in Sydney here. And I've lived in Melbourne, and I've lived in Adelaide, and I've lived in a whole bunch of other little towns around here. Now, what happened was, my father had a change of career, and his career meant that he moved from town to town to town. And so that one school I showed you, which you can still see on the map here, Edward Public School, right? I then went to Guthrie Street Public School, and I then went to Boucher Street Public School, and then I went to West End Public School. And then because we moved around, and then I moved to another place, and I went to some Christian school I can't even remember the name of, but I do remember getting the cane because I had a walkie-talkie on it, and the walkie-talkie had the radio, and of course, music, rock music was of the devil, and because I had a radio and I'd listened to rock music, I got the cane, right? Go figure. That was my kind of upbringing in that kind of really strict approach. Of course, now you can see why I buck against that authority as well. Anyway, then I went to another school, primary school called Largs Bay Primary School. That was over in Adelaide. And then I went to high school called West Lakes High School. And then I went to some other high school that I can't remember the name of. Anyway, the point is that in like 11 years of schooling, I went to about 9 schools. And there's another one in there somewhere. And then I dropped out. Okay, no wonder I dropped out. Now, what's really interesting is when I've done this as an experiment, I was speaking to a group of people, probably about 500 people in the crowd, and I got everyone put your hand up who's been to 1 school. Of course, everyone put their hand up. Leave your hand up if you went to 2 schools. Everyone left their hand up, primary school, high school. Keep your hand up if you've been to 3 schools. And then I went through 4, 5, 6, and you only kept your hand up if you'd been to that many. By the time I got to 6 schools, there was only 2 people in that whole auditorium who had their hand up, right? And I was one of them. Put your hand up if you've been to more than 7 schools. Okay, and then that person put their hand down. Now, the point is, what this tells me and what I knew already is that I have a fairly unique background when it comes to that. Okay, I was just moved from school to school to school to school. And there's actually research, right, in Europe that came out. They did a long-term study looking at kids and mental health and found that if the kids had even been to more than 5 or 6 schools, that it was really negatively correlated with mental health. All right, so I just put that down to I somehow thrived instead of having mental health problems as a result. Nevertheless, it wasn't fun. It wasn't a great experience. I wouldn't say that it was awesome. However, it happened, and we are who we are because of how we've come to be. Right? And so a lot of who I am now is a result of that experience. Now, the one thing that did for me was that, one, I did not know how to learn. I mean, I got plucked out of school so many times. I didn't know how to study. I didn't know how to learn. I was literally just scraping through, and I didn't enjoy school at all. I was often bullied because when you're the new kid you are. And so what happened is that really I didn't feel like I belonged anywhere. And wherever you went, you'd come across these bubbles of people who'd be nice and polite to you, but at the same time, they had this huge history, and it was hard, if not impossible, to break into that history. So what you end up doing as a stray, like I was then you end up hanging and finding out, finding out who the other strays are, and you kind of band together and try and build your history from there. But as I moved so much, that was really hard to build a long-term thing. So it was no wonder I dropped out of high school, and I went and got a retail job, and I was a musician and all this sort of stuff. And I was really at a loss, like at a massive loss of what to do with my life. I had no idea really what to do. And I knew that I was hopeless at learning. So anything at all that seemed like a professional career was totally off for me. There was just not a chance. Like, it did not even enter my mind to have a professional career of anything because I couldn't learn. I wasn't smart. I couldn't make all that work. And so, that's the mindset I had. That was the belief I had. It wasn't true, right? But it's what I believed. And this is the key thing that I want to get through is like things that you believe about your life and about yourself right now that then have an impact on you deciding that you can't do something. Highly likely that those beliefs could be challenged, right? We could scratch the surface of them and discover that they're not really true. Or you can't even have something that's not really true, like they're just not true. And this is the skill I've acquired, is being able to shed my skin, so to speak, all right? And move forward with something new. So anyway, I was going along, and then I met Rhoda, right? So Rhoda is the love of my life. She's my wife. And when I met her, I had a reason for me to try and do something to be worthy of being a partner to somebody. Okay, when it was just me, I could be stuffed up and not know where I was going. But when it came to being a partner, and when you need to bring yourself 100% to a relationship and show up as 100%, then you need to be worthy, right? Not lucky. I didn't want to be lucky to get Rhoda. I wanted to be worthy to be with Rhoda. And so I decided to go back to university. Now, to do that, I had to go back to school. Remember, I was a high school dropout. Had to go back to school. Now, I want you to just, again, put yourself that this is not my story. This is all of our story, because I had to go back and do something that I felt was humiliating, that I hadn't finished it. I had to go back and do it. First, it also felt like I was going backwards, not forward where I wanted to go. And also I was going back to do something humiliating because I was hopeless at it. Right? So hopeless at it. And I needed to do it. And so this is one of the things when I look back that I owe this motivation that I got, self-derived motivation to be worthy, to be with Rhoda. And so this is a really key thing. So anyway, so I did go back, had to go back. I went to do like a combined high school dropout course, right? And I did that course and I didn't know how to learn. I don't know how, I can't even remember that year, but I had to quit my job. Of course, I had no money. And then I went through that and I managed to get a place at university. I don't know to this day how I managed to do it, right? But the thing is, I got back into university. And it was at that time too that Rhoda and I got married, and we were having a discussion about our lives, and we were thinking, you know, like, the reason I'm doing this is because I want to live a life on purpose that I design as much as I can, that I can influence the things that I can influence. And why wouldn't you want to do that as well? And so Rhoda had, she'd gone through a more traditional thing. She went from school to university, but she really wanted to go back and pursue her dream of becoming a dietitian. And to do that, she had to go back and get another degree and all that sort of stuff. So she quit her job as well. And we both went back as a young married couple to university with no money except for, you know, you can get some government allowances and stuff, to be able to put ourselves through what was going to be a very long-term study. Because I had at least 5 years I had to do, and Rhoda had four years to do. And anyway, we went back. And here is the key thing, right? When I got into that university, the first day I was there, I was so self-conscious because I had a belief that university was this place that rich kids went to, right? That kids who had a normal upbringing went to, school, university, because that was the normal approach. And I just felt like a fish out of water. And I would go to these lectures, and these kids who were obviously younger than I was, and they weren't kids, they're young adults, right, at university, were all taking notes. I had no idea how to take notes. I'm looking around going, what the hell are they taking? Like, seriously, do I write it all down word for word, or how do I know which bits to take down? That's how much I didn't know how to study. And so I had to learn how to, and I managed to learn how to study, and I was driven. To do it, and I had to learn that. Anyway, I learned how to learn. And when you learn how to learn, it means you can pretty much learn anything, right? They're meta skills, metacognitive skills. Anyway, I managed to do incredibly well in that first year of university. It was a science degree, human biology, human biomedical science. Then I studied neuroscience, and oh my goodness, my mind was blown. Because I began to learn things and understand things about myself and the way the world worked because I began to understand humans. I also took courses in psychology. And so this new understanding that was evidence-based, so much of my prior beliefs were really came from a religious background, and so much of it was incorrect and didn't match up with what we knew about science, that all of a sudden the world began to make more sense to me, and I fell in love with learning and the increased level of certainty that brought with it. Anyway, that then started the kind of journey, right? And Rhoda just excelled. She got the Professor's Prize in Nutrition for being the most academically able. She absolutely excelled. She was a great person to be going through with. We studied together. We'd stay up together and cram for exams and all that kind of cool stuff. It was awesome. Anyway, I want to show you something. I want to show you something here. This is the first degree. We actually ended up transitioning down to Melbourne, right? And I got the first degree here. It's a Bachelor of Science, right? So I managed to get that degree. Had panic attacks and all that sort of stuff. Got generalized anxiety disorder during this time. And then there's a long story to do with that. I wrote a book about it. I'll show you in a minute. But anyway, then I did this master's degree in health science. Right? It was all to do with body, neuroscience, pain, all that sort of stuff. And this actually enabled me to qualify and register as an osteopath as well. But during this time, we had no money, right? We were students living in a tiny little apartment and no money, scraping together just what we had each week to get by. And if we wanted to read anything, we'd go to the local Borders bookshop because they had nice chairs you could sit in and read the books. And so that's when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And again, that blew my mind, right? Is because my father is an awesome man and has set a great example for me in many areas, but he wasn't a businessman. And so, the whole area of business was, again, completely foreign to me. So when I read this book, just the basic concepts blew my mind. And as a result, it kind of changed the course of my life because I began to investigate business and particularly how to scale and leverage your time. So that instead of you working and only working 1-for-1, where you're stuck in that ratio where you could work 1 to many, you could multiply your impact. And that was what captured my attention and has held my attention ever since, about how to do that effectively. Now, during that time, I also started a scientific journal with a very good friend of mine, the International Journal of Osteopathic Medicine. Now, I didn't really start it as a business. I started it out of a passion for the research that was coming out of the degree that I was part of, and I saw the opportunity for an international publication, and we grew that publication to become the largest of its kind in the world, and then ended up selling it to Elsevier Science, which is the world's largest medical publishing company, right? And we had to fly across to London, and there's a whole story behind that. Met Prince Charles at a cocktail party. It was insane. I want you to notice something, right? I did that with other people. It wasn't me. It was my idea, but I had other people who then galvanized to that idea, and it was really them that helped make it possible for me to see that idea come to fruition. And that's amazing. And that's my key point here, right? Is that as you begin to take action, your enthusiasm will begin to attract other people, and you will find a way forward, and then it won't be all on you. And this is what I was reflecting on my birthday yesterday, was all the people who have helped me and been a part of my life. Some of them are still a part of my everyday life. A lot of other people from my past aren't a part of my everyday life. It doesn't mean that I don't have extreme gratitude, feelings of gratitude for those people and the role that they played. Anyway, I then fell in love with studying, and here's another one. As soon as I graduated from the master's degree, I then did a graduate diploma in clinical epidemiology through the University of Newcastle. Right? An awesome university, an amazing degree. Then after that, I did another master's degree, and this is a master's degree in pain medicine. And this, I largely did this because I was absolutely enthralled with the topic. I mean, I wanted to become a master, literally, of pain medicine. And I did it with a guy called Professor Nikolai Bogdyuk, he's won the Order of Australia medal. And he is just an amazing character, and he was an incredible supervisor. And then after that, I then enrolled in this beast of a thing, which is my PhD, right? Which is 6 years while I was working full-time as well. PhD from the University of Sydney. That was awesome. So again, I want you to think about this. I was a high school dropout. I went to all those schools. The odds were against me. According to the scientific literature, the odds were against me. And yet, I was able to overcome my story, escape my own stereotype as a dropout, and become one of the most educated people in Australia. Only because by the sheer number of degrees I've got, not because I'm the smartest. I'm not. I've had to work really, really hard at getting all of those things. None of it came easy. And that's the thing. The other key thing I want to get you. Some people have a natural talent. I've met them. They're amazing. I didn't. It's skill. It's learning. It's applying. It's constantly going over what you need to do to get better and better at it so that you develop mastery. And what that does is that knowledge, that information, I want that to break through any limiting belief you have about yourself, is that it comes down to practice, repetition, and rehearsal of a skill, and you will then get the skill. If you keep on persisting with it. If you give up on it, you won't develop the skill. If you don't have a natural talent for it, you will still be able to acquire the skill. Now, maybe you won't become the most skillful person on the planet, but if you were to compare yourself, who persists in mastering the skill, with someone who's just got a natural talent for it but doesn't cultivate the skill, you'll become more skillful than them anyway. And it doesn't matter about them. Who cares about anyone else anyway? You just do you. You do what you want to do. Don't take no for an answer. Don't take no from yourself as an answer. You know, there's a lot in our community, in our society, a lot of stuff going on about stereotyping people and identities and all that sort of thing, right? There was so much talk about that. And I listen to all that and I go, it's all fucking noise. Because the worst identity, the worst stereotype that you live up to is your own, of yourself. Because the reason you judge other people, the reason you feel the way you do about yourself, the reason you behave in certain ways, the reason you give up on yourself before you've even started is because of the stereotype you have of yourself. You cast yourself in a certain role and then you live up to that role, including its limitations, including its restrictive and restricted pathway. Where in actual fact, you're an open book and you can write whatever story you want. You don't need permission from anybody. You can just do what you want to do. And when you do, and when you take action, when you commit to it, and when you give yourself permission, you will find that other people will then begin to form part of that journey. You are not in this alone. You won't be in it alone. So when you are imagining your future and when you are deciding that it's impossible for you, that's because in your mind, you're only thinking about the current resources and the current skill that you have. You need to understand you have ingenuity, you have resources, you have relationship building skills, you've got an ability to be able to move forward, and you can't predict what's going to happen as you begin to take that journey. And as you begin to take the journey, things will begin to happen to help you along the way. That's what I've found. After I've had to break through mental barrier and emotional barrier after barrier after barrier. Okay, I came from a background, I remember the food in our kitchen, there not being enough food, and my mother crying, and us waiting and hearing a knock on the door because someone who knew us in our community had left a food parcel on our front door. So I didn't have a great relationship with money. I didn't have a belief about my ability to earn money. I didn't have a belief about my ability to become a professional. I had to break through all of those, as I know a lot of other people have too as well. And so that's why I'm not suggesting that you do anything that I haven't done, that I haven't broken through. You can do this, right? So then, what else? From a guy who could hardly spell and didn't make his way through English very well, here's a book, right? This is a book I wrote called Finally Free. It was published in conjunction with Mia Friedman and the Mamma Mia website. And it went to a bestseller on Amazon in the top category of mental health. It's about stress and anxiety. And then I landed on the morning TV shows and went all around Australia on it. And it was awesome. Now, what's the point of this? Well, it's a full book, and I published it. But yet I was a high school dropout. And I helped a lot of people with this book. I got some great feedback from it. It's quite a while ago that I published it. But the point of the book, right, it's about anxiety because, as I mentioned earlier, I developed anxiety and panic attacks for a period of time. It's a long time ago now. I had it for about 4 years. It was debilitating. The interesting thing about it was that I was performing at a very high level at the time that I still had anxiety. And this is a really key thing. Often when you think of anxiety, you think of someone who isn't participating in life. My experience is that so many top performers have a whole shitload of anxiety going on, but they manage to be able to keep performing and they push through. And this is going on in the background and they don't tell people about it. Okay, this is a very common thing. I coach and work with entrepreneurs and CEOs now who are working at a very high level, and yet they have a lot of anxiety because when you push yourself that much, you often then bring the same amount of resistance, and it shows up often in that way. But the thing is, I've broken through all that. I don't have that anymore. And that's what I also help people with, right? All the way through to a completely new life that I've now got. Now, back to the journey here. Let's have a look here. Back to this research thing. Here is a page of mine at ResearchGate. And it's just, this is a site where you list all your research. And I want to show you something here. And this isn't, I mean, there are people, researchers, far superior to me, right? With so many more publications, etc. than I do. I've had 10,000 people, over 10,000 other people read my research, and I've had 664, around that amount, of other scientists referring back and using my research from my PhD. I mean, that astounds me to this day because of the background. I remember where I came from. So the PhD I actually finished in about 2012, I think it was. And yet it's 2019. I'm still getting cited today for work that I did back here that has laid the groundwork and the foundation for other people to be able to build and do their research on. Folks, the reason I'm telling you this, right, is that you can do whatever you want to do. You can do it. You just have to start thinking about how I could do it. It's so corny, that thing about instead of saying I can't do it, say how can I do it? But it works. I mean, if you were to sit there just as a thought experiment for the fun of it and say, if I wanted to do this, how would I do it? How would I do it? And let yourself think. If you don't even allow that, then all you'll do is I can't do this and it doesn't go anywhere. right? It's just amazing. This is the office I used to work at in Sydney. That I owned one of the units in here. And let's show you where this is. This was my practice when I was consulting patients. If we zoom back out of here, you'll see where it is, right smack bang in Sydney. Okay, so in there somewhere, right, there's the Harbour Bridge, there's the Opera House, there's the harbour. We live just over here to the right. How did I end up with that practice? It's not something I thought I would ever be able to have as a professional. Remember, that was a mindset I had to break through. Now, in 2009, I did another scary thing because even though I had that practice in there, and even though I had a job working here as well, here it is, at the University of Sydney at the School of Public Health. It's an amazing university. It's Australia's most prestigious university, or one of. Some people might say that Melbourne University is, but if we have a look here. Beautiful university, old, it's got the stone towers and the castles and all that sort of stuff. It was a great place to work, right? Smack bang in Sydney, again, you can see there's the bridge and etc. So I was working there and I had these practices. Why did I leave those? I mean, for all intents and purposes, anyone looking on would go, okay, he's got two practices. He's the editor of a scientific journal, and he's working at the most prestigious university in Australia in a field that he has become expert at and loves. Why would I leave? And it's because I'd learned to listen to this. And I'd learned that I can learn, and I'd learned that I can shed my skin. The fact was, even though I had that, I wasn't satisfied. I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy because I wasn't able to fulfill what I felt was my potential. All right? My potential, what I knew was I was capable of, had grown. The more I achieved, the more I believed I could achieve. And it all started because I learned how to learn, and I learned how to shed my skin. And so what I decided to do was to completely just leave everything and go online. At a time back then when it wasn't, Instagram wasn't really around much at all, only just started, back in 2008, 2009, everything was hard technically. There was no easy software apps. Everything was a pain in the ass to do. And I decided I was going to try and make this life work online. Why? Because I felt like the internet gave me the ability to reach many, many more people than I could reach one-on-one. And I wanted to enjoy that scale, and I wanted to enjoy a lifestyle. I wanted to be a dad who picked his kids up from school, took them to school in the morning, could attend all of their plays and their award ceremonies and all that sort of stuff. And I just wanted to have the freedom to be able to work from where I wanted to work. I wanted to be able to reach people not just in my local community, but around the world. I wanted to explore different things. We only live once. I didn't want to regret not trying. And I knew other people had done it, and if other people had done it, it meant I could learn how to do it. I might not be the best at it. I might not become totally expert at it, but I knew that if I learned what they did, if I hung out with them, if I found out what they were doing, that I didn't have to have a story that then became the never-ending story of consulting patients and giving lectures. That I could do something different than that. There's nothing wrong with doing those things, but for me, it wasn't right. For me, it didn't sit well, and I wanted to go do something different. And so for the last almost 10 years now, in 2009 was when it was in December 2009 was when I left everything. I sold both my practices and the building and everything. I walked away from it all. I left the university. And I went out and I went online. And since then, I've had multiple businesses online. Kind of like my schooling. I haven't just stuck to one thing. Well, a couple of things have been constant, and I've tried lots of other different things in the meantime. Lots of projects. I've worked with some incredible people. I've met incredible people. And I've sustained myself through this MacBook that I've done it. I've impacted people in over 70 countries. I've sold software. I've sold education and webinars. I've sold courses. I've sold physical products. And one of the things I'm doing right now, and I could never have predicted this, is this here. Let me go and have a look. See this company here, Build, Grow, Scale. Build, Grow, Scale is a company that is headed up by these gentlemen here, Matthew Stafford and Tanner Larson. Now, Tanner has been online doing stuff since like 2001. He was an eBay power seller, and then it went on and on. He's coached thousands and thousands of business owners about how to start e-commerce stores. And I now partner and work with these guys in a program they have called Ecom Insider. And we publish stuff every single month. And we've got a group of people, about 500 business owners, Tanner's the author of a best-selling book here called E-Commerce Evolved. If you haven't got hold of this and you're interested in e-commerce, there's no other book you should read. This book here itself is worth more than some of the $2,000 courses you can go buy on e-commerce. So just get hold of that and have a read. And I work with these guys and the business owners that we help on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis to build, grow, and scale their e-commerce store. And a lot of what I do with them is help them with mindset, is help them overcome the limiting beliefs that they may have, the stories that they need to escape from so that they can best grow and scale their business. Right? Because my goal is to help entrepreneurs become awesome people and to help people become awesome entrepreneurs. And it's not just about the money. It's about developing and living the business as your life, so it nourishes you rather than drains you. Right? I get to get up every single day and do what I love, and I have done for almost a decade now, coming up in November this year, right? And that's a key thing, is that every single dollar I've earned in the last in the last 10 years is a dollar I've earned enjoying what I do. And if I've lost money at all, the money that I lost it doing something that I loved doing. So it didn't hurt anywhere near as much as losing a dollar that you had to earn from doing something you don't like anymore or you hate. And so the whole moral of this story, the multiple messages of the story, is one, you are not alone. If you decide to do something and you ask yourself how you can do it, and you go and you find out from other people who have done it, how they did it and what you need to do, you can find the answers and you can begin to take that journey. Now, you may not end up where you think you're going to end up. I certainly haven't. But the one thing I have done, the one thing that's been consistent, is that I do what I love. The details are different than I expected, right? They're awesome. I could not have predicted what I'm doing now. It's better than I could have predicted. But the one key thing is that I'm doing what I love to do. I'm continuing to explore my potential, and the life I've created enables me to do that. And if you want to do that, then you can, right? You're going to have a story that's different to mine in terms of the details. Your background could be very different to mine, no doubt it is. But that doesn't detract away from the amazing opportunity and potential you have in a time right now in history that we have never had before. Never had before. If you want to learn anything, you can. If you want to find out how to do anything, you can find out how to do it. There is no curtain that you can't peek behind to find out how to do stuff. And so that's what I want to leave you with as my birthday message, right? Is I want to encourage you that you just don't have to take life lying down. You don't have to endorse your own decline. You do not have to give up on what you want. And there's nothing stopping you from finding out how to do what you want. And you can do it. So I hope you took some encouragement from that. And that's it. So happy birthday to me, from me, and thanks for listening and watching for this long if you're still here. And I'm going to catch you in another video probably pretty soon. Bye now.